All right, guys, we're going to work on graphing sines and cosines. And before we start to graph, I want you to understand what the graph's made of. So this should be a little bit of review from what we did last Friday before we went on break, Thursday and Friday, right before the break. Actually, it was Friday for odds and Monday for evens. So before you went on break, what we found was this. We found that we learned what the amplitude was, and the amplitude is the distance from the midline to the top or to the bottom, so a max or a min, and each one of these lines is 1 unit. So from the midline, and guys, I did make this one to where the midline, if you can see the bottom of it, it's at -4, and the top of it is at +4. So the midline is at 0. That is at y equals 0. I wonder if I shouldn't have put midline first. The amplitude is the distance from midline to the top or the midline to the bottom. So the midline's going through right here, okay? So that is the midline. It's 4 units to the top or to the bottom. Now I will tell you, it's a positive sine graph if it starts out climbing first and then does the backwards S thing. All right, so that is it, and A is the same as the amplitude 4. On this one, the midline, let's see, it bottoms out at 1.5, it tops out at 2.5, so that means that the midline is at 2. All right, but it only goes up and down a half, so the amplitude is 1/2. However, on this one, A is not simply 1/2 because it starts out going down and then up. It's a -1/2. All right, this S is more of in the shape. If I turn my paper sideways, which I can't do on the board, you can see the whole S thing going on right there, right? So that is a sine curve. And the negative ones actually make a forward S. The positive ones kind of make a flipped S. All right, so let's look at number 3. Number 3, we have a midline. If you see where it starts, the midline is at -1, and it climbs 2 before it tops out. So the amplitude is 2. So A is either equal to positive or -2. Since it starts going up, it is a +2. All right, so let's look at this last one. On the last one, if we find the middle, the bottom's at -4, the top is at 6. So the middle is not hitting at 0, it's actually hitting right here at 1. The midline is y equals 1. The amplitude, it maxes out at 6, so that would be 5. So A is either going to be +5 or -5. Well, if you look at this, it starts out going down from 0. It looks like it's a -5. All right? So the period is the time that it takes to complete a full sine curve. It's actually sine or cosine curve or tangent curve. And increments yields how close the magic numbers are to each other. The increments are the steps that we take, and it's period divided by 4, which gives us our magic numbers, okay? So it's how close we are, how close we're counting them apart, all right? So number 5, let's figure out, this one, first of all, is a standard sine curve. So it starts, notice it says starts, all right? I'm going to zoom in a little bit right here so you can see it a little better. It starts at 0, climbs to 1, goes back down to pi, down to -1, up to 2 pi. So a period, a standard period is 2 pi. Now, in your notes from Friday, we found out that period is equal to 2 pi divided by b. What is b? b is part of the equation, which we're going to see in a few minutes. Okay, it's on the notes in just a second. All right? And the increments, it's the period over 4 is equal to the increments. So in this case, it would be 2 pi over 4, which becomes pi over 2. Okay? So that means this starts at 0, goes to pi over 2, and pi over 2 plus pi over 2 is pi, plus pi over 2 more is 3 pi over 2, plus pi over 2 more is 2 pi. Okay? And we're done. That's all this is showing you, is that these are the ordered pairs. We started at 0, 0, went to, this is pi right here, so this would represent pi over 2. This line would represent 3 pi over 2, and that's 2 pi right there. All right? Let's go on to the next one. What is the period for this one? The period for this one, here's the sine curve. I'm going to highlight the sine curve. This is the whole thing, right? It does this right here. It stops at 4 pi, okay? So it took 4 pi units, took 4 pi to complete the whole thing, okay? So that means the increments are going to take 4 pi divided by 4. It leaves pi. Well, now we get to counting pi's, and that's kind of easy. So we got 0, pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, and 4 pi, and we're done. Okay? There's our period and increments. Last one, number 7. Now this one is a little special, and it has start right here, and notice it climbs 3 units, falls 3 units, and each line is a unit here, okay? So in this one, it's a little different, and it only goes to, it's really hard to see. The board made it easier, but that is pi right there, okay? So if this is pi units, here's the whole sine curve. I'm going to put it on there. I'm going to highlight it in green. Okay, here's the full sine curve. It only took pi to get there. All right, so it's kind of hard to see on this. It was a little easier. So the period is pi, the increment is pi over 4. So that means we're starting at 0, and I'm going to count by pi over 4s, or quarter pi's. So a quarter pi more than 0 is pi over 4. A quarter pi more than that is pi over 2. A quarter pi more than that is 3/4 pi, or 3 pi over 4. And pi is a quarter pi more than that. Okay, there's all of our numbers, and we have what we need. However, you're going to notice these magic numbers didn't end up in the same place. And a lot of kids ask me, what are the magic numbers? Where are you getting those from? If you look at the unit circle, and I think, yeah, I have enough room to draw it right here. If you look at the unit circle, the easy number to find, the easy numbers to find are all right here. It's out 1 up 0, out 0 up 1, back 1 up 0, down out 0 down 1. And this is all at 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and back to 2 pi. This is where your sine is the second number, and these are the magic numbers of sine. Okay? Sorry, that went down too far. I didn't realize it. Hold on. All right. There we go. Now you can see it. So here's the coordinates of the unit circle at the 1s and 0s. And the sine, remember, this is cosine, sine. Sine's the second number, and that's telling us where these magic numbers are coming from. Now, this particular problem has a problem, and that is, that is the fact that this is climbing up to 3 and down to -3. So the fact that it does that means that these are our magic numbers and something a little extra is happening to y here. Our y value, remember, it's going to be sine of something with the x, and there may be more going on in there than what we want to know right now. For the fact that this is all done by the time it gets to pi does mean that there is a b value right here. This is a b. Something's going on with that other than 1, and I'm not going to worry about that right now. We will cover that again on Thursday. So if I look at what we're multiplying sine by, this reached 3 and bottomed out at 3. In other words, a is equal to 3. So I'm going to put a 3 right there, and that means I'm going to be multiplying this by 3. 3 times 0 is 3. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 0 is 0. Hello. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 0 back to 0. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. 3 times 0 is 0. So what this says is that over here, when I'm at 0, 0, there it is, pi over 4, 3. This is this point right here is at pi over 2. This point right here is at pi over 4. And this point right here is at 3 pi over 4. And these are the values that you're getting all the way down. Okay? Just saying, that's what it is. Wow, am I ever blurry? Let's see if I can fix that. There we go. Okay, so pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, 2. I mean pi, right there. And these are the numbers that go with it. All right, let's do the next one. Okay, number 8. Here we are. Actually going to raise this up just a smidge. There we go. All right, so number 8, we're looking at vertical and horizontal shifts. As you can see, this did not go across this y equals 0 line. So let's see where that midline is. We started with, what is the midline? Well, here's the midline. The midline is at y equals 2, and that's important to know because we want to keep that in mind so we know where we're going to start, okay? Because it's going to start right there. That's the nice thing about sine. All right, so the period, how long does it take to complete this shape? Well, it starts at 0 and finishes at 2 pi. So it is 2 pi, and the increments is going to take 2 pi, divide it by 4. Somebody asked me today, why do we divide by 4? And I said, well, because there's 4 quadrants, and that is the truth. So you'll divide by 4, and then you're going to start at out 0, up 2. You can see where it starts, and I can look at the graph to figure that out. Okay? And I'm going to figure this out by looking at points as well. So when I go over here and I do my increments, well, it starts at 0, and the final, it starts at 2 here. So we'll fill that in just a second. But we're going to go to 0, and an increment goes up by pi over 2. So I'm going to add a pi over 2, and then add another pi over 2 and get pi. 3 pi over 2, and then 2 pi. There's all my values right there. Here, these are my magic numbers, and all I'm going to do is move this guy up. Instead of it starting at 0, it started at 2, so this is going to climb by 2. This 2, I'm going to highlight it for you. This 2 right here is the same thing as that 2, which is where it came from here on the midline. Okay? Hope that helps a little bit to highlight those. All right. Then over here, all we have to do is take our magic numbers, and we're going to add 2 because it didn't get multiplied by anything. Okay? It only went up 1. Our amplitude, excuse me, was 1. So A was 1, not a negative 1. So all we have to do is add 2 because we don't have anything to multiply that by. So add 2, add 2, add 2, add 2, add 2. Okay, we're done. This one is a mean one because of a shift. If you can see, this one's clearly typed. Thankfully, we can see it. This is pi over 2 and 2 pi. So I know what's going on here. This is pi over 2, and this is pi over 4. And this started at pi over 4. That was our starting point. So I haven't figured out the period yet, but I did figure out this point is pi over 4. So if I go 1 unit past pi over 4 right here, 1 unit after pi over 4, well, that would be 8 pi over 4. So this is worth 9 pi over 4. All right, and it's going to right here. Look, it took that whole time to complete it, but that's still 2 pi. So I'm going to take the increments. It's still going to be going up by pi over 2. And this is the hardest part, the worst one. We're seeing it on day 1 right away. Bam. All right, we're going to start at pi over 4. And it's starting at 1. So I can see that. I've got that started. And then what I have to do is I have to count by pi over 2's right here. So if I have a quarter pi and I'm going to add a half pi, I'm at 3/4 pi. And if I add another half pi, by the way, that's what? I wanted to go fourths. That's 2/4? Yeah, that's 2/4. So that's going to be 5 pi over 4. 7 pi over 4. That goes to 0. This should be 7 pi over 4 goes to 1. And 9 pi over 4 goes to 0, and that's the last one we wanted to do. Okay? So then all I have to do is take these magic numbers and add 1. So I'm going to take this magic number, and it's going to become 2, 1, 0, 1. And that's exactly where these end up. Now, if you look at this, I'm adding 3 pi over 4, 5. Let's see, this one's a pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. This one's 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4, because they're odds. All right, now I've got all of my numbers, and they're all matching up. I will tell you that this went over positive pi over 4. So that's what would go here, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on that right now. But that one is the most difficult one to get. Okay? So now let's just go to the reading the equations and knowing what they mean, because then we're going to graph them. So I'm going to go to this first one, and I'm going to point out, okay, notice that right here we have A, B, C, and D. And we're going to see what each one of those are, as we fill this out. Sorry, I'm talking, it's the end of the day. My voice is actually really tired after having a week off. Okay, so A is 2, B is not there, so it's a 1. C is not there, so it's a 0. How do I know? Because it's being added, so it has to be 0. Here it's being multiplied, so it has to be 1. D is there, and it's a -1. So the amplitude stays the same. It would go positive if it were negative because it's an absolute value. Period is going to be 2 pi. It's usually 2 pi over B, and B is 1, which makes it 2 pi. 0 units left or right, 1 unit, since it's negative, down. The midline is at y equals -1. All right? So I'm going to do all of these and fill them out, and we'll talk about it. If there's anything, these are the ones on the bottom I want to fill out. So why don't we take a break, because this video is already almost 20 minutes long. So let's call it quits for this one, and I'll show you the answers to this when I come back.